What's up guys, Pablo here with another video, and today we have the unboxing and my first thoughts and impressions on the new Chromecast with Google TV. Starting today, I'm gonna do something a little bit different with the videos where I break them down into categories, and the categories for today's video are as follows, or as they appear on the screen. Should be right here. And those categories are also gonna be throughout the video, like on your actual timeline in the video. You can press on them and jump from one another. So the Chromecast with Google TV released in September 30th, 2020, so a couple months ago. And it's the latest version of the Chromecast by Google. The packaging details the Chromecast and its remote. Then again, after they are set up, the possibilities of the remote with the Google Assistant, the brand new Google TV, and the supported formats and video resolutions on this Chromecast. And some of these are regular HD, 4K at 60 frames per second, and HDR. Now in my case, I have a 32-inch Samsung TV from about 10 years ago, and even though it's just 1080p, which obviously won't be able to play full 4K, when I try to play 4K stuff on it, it actually looked very incredibly sharp. Which, like we just mentioned, the Chromecast can handle that higher resolution, even though the TV cannot, making the image that it's showing on the TV as sharp as possible. Back to the packaging, however, it also describes the connectivity of the Chromecast, which is Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And finally, the packaging reminds us that this Chromecast is compatible with Android and iOS mobile devices. When you first open up the packaging, there's two smaller boxes inside of it, one storing the Chromecast and another one storing its remote. Besides that, the packaging also includes a bit of paperwork, which is the limited warranty and a very short quick start guide, as well as a power brick and a USB-C to regular USB cable for powering the device. And also included within the packaging for the Chromecast is the AAA batteries that the remote uses. When you first hold the Chromecast and the remote in your hand, they feel different but also familiar at the same time. The Chromecast feels heavier and obviously larger in size than previous versions in the past. And before I actually had the remote in my hands, I heard some mixed reviews about it online. I have personally come to like it. It's not terribly inconvenient. It's very light, like I said, and it fits the hand perfectly. Although I have to say, one thing that I'm still kind of getting used to is the button placement on it. The setup is rather simple. You plug in the Chromecast to the back of the TV or monitor, and then you use the included cord and power adapter or wall adapter to be able to run power to it. These last two pieces mentioned, the power brick and the cord, they're very important to make sure that the Chromecast gets a constant flow of power. I personally try to not use the power brick and plugged in the Chromecast to the USB port in my TV, and it didn't quite work out well. It ended up telling me that I needed more power and that I needed to actually plug it in through the power brick into a wall outlet. So if you are looking into buying this Chromecast, I would definitely play it safe and realize that you're probably most likely going to end up using an outlet to power the device. Then the Chromecast will start looking and trying to sync with the remote. And now the remote's in, once you put in the batteries, the LED at the bottom will start pulsating, meaning that it's ready to sync. And from there, it's a step-by-step guide on the screen and the Google Home app in order to finish up the setup. Now, the biggest difference between this Chromecast and other or previous Chromecasts is the fact that this one comes with a brand new user interface from Google. And that's what Google TV is. According to my research, this is the new interface that will be substituting Android TV in the coming year. Now, the biggest advantage of having Google TV built into the Chromecast is that unlike previous versions, you don't have to have a phone or a mobile device in order to watch content on the Chromecast. Google TV provides that direct connection to the internet and to the streaming services, and with the help of the remote to be able to navigate through them in order to watch content from the Chromecast. You still can cast if that's something you prefer to do. I know sometimes I'm in bed watching Netflix on my phone, Disney Plus, whatever. I get tired of the phone and I prefer watching on the larger screen. I can directly press that casting button on the screen and it will show immediately on the Chromecast as well. The Google TV interface is very similar to Android TV because it's technically another version of Android TV, but with a more preview-filled vibe, as you can see right here. The Chromecast makes suggestions based on other content that you have watched, and it directly places it in front of you in the different tabs or categories that it comes with. The other tabs at the top show you specific recommendations on movies, TV shows, or apps. And the last tab is Library, which shows you purchase content, downloaded content, rentals, and watch listed content. And this is possible due to the 8 gigabytes of storage that the Chromecast comes with. However, only about half of that, 4.4 gigabytes, is used for actually storing stuff in the Chromecast. And the thing to keep in mind is that in this Chromecast, you're not able to expand that storage by adding a USB drive or an SD card. But at the same time, you technically are able to. And I'll touch on this a little bit later, or I'll talk about this a little bit later. If you get a USB hub, you're able to connect a flash drive, an SD card, and whatever is stored there, you can see on the Chromecast. So you're technically not expanding the storage, but you are using external storage for content and games and all that kind of stuff. So I guess it turns out to be the same thing. Now, this Chromecast wouldn't be what it is without Google TV. But Google TV wouldn't be possible or wouldn't work if it wasn't because of the new remote. The remote only works with this version of the Chromecast and hopefully future ones. It does not work with the other Chromecast that is also for sale right now because that Chromecast does not have Google TV. A very cool detail, but nothing necessarily new for this kind of technology about the remote, is the fact that you can control other devices with it. Using the IR feature on the remote, I can control the TV, more specifically, or at least the two that I use the most, is the volume up and down, and then also turning the TV on and off. You are able to use it for other things though, like a soundbar or an audio and video receiver. For the Chromecast itself though, I believe it's using CEC or some sort of RF signal to actually be able to control it, because this is the reader up top, right, or the signal, the IR signal. When I cover that up and not even pointing at the TV itself, right, I'm still able to control the Chromecast with the remote. Pretty neat feature, especially if you're like away and you don't have to be struggling to reach out and get a specific IR reader on the Chromecast itself. The buttons on the remote give you quick access to multiple things. So for example, homepage, mute, or direct access to YouTube and Netflix. One of the most important buttons, however, is the one that's contrasting from the rest of the remote with that darker tone to it, and that's obviously the Google Assistant button. And in my opinion and personal experience, this button is what brings a lot of value to this Chromecast. The main reason Google put this button here was for you to use the Assistant to get suggestions, open up apps, or just look up something specifically content related. Beyond those things mentioned though, this button right here benefits anyone with a smart home ecosystem built around the Google Assistant or Google Home. The best way to think of this function is that the Chromecast is combined with what would be a smart Google Assistant speaker. And this is nothing necessarily new, but me personally, I get really excited whenever I'm able to add a product to my smart home ecosystem and it works perfectly, or it works seamlessly for that matter. I can use my TV as a security monitor with the Chromecast now, since it connects to either my Arlo camera or my Nest doorbell. I can also control other devices within my smart home, like my thermostat, the NVIDIA Shield Pro, or even other Google speakers around the house. Now, this smart home integration would not be possible without the right kind of technology. And like we mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Chromecast is Wi-Fi and Bluetooth enabled. Now, obviously the Wi-Fi is what makes it able to download apps, stream, and do all these other things, including being part of a smart home. But I really want to take a second to talk about the Bluetooth capabilities on this Chromecast. First of all, it works with Bluetooth accessories like headphones or Bluetooth speakers. And this can be very helpful when you have TVs that are not Bluetooth capable, or that the Bluetooth capabilities is limited to just adding keyboards to the TV. Now, the Bluetooth capabilities on the Chromecast do not let you send the signal from a phone or a computer for the Chromecast to work like a Bluetooth speaker. Well, when I was doing it, I came across the fact that I could link my Apple Music account via the Google Home app to the Chromecast, or really to all my smart home devices. And that allows me to go into my Google Home app and use Apple Music as my streaming service, and I can just tell Google to play a song on any speaker or on the Chromecast. So I can just ask Google to play a song and it will play it directly from Apple Music. Play Hurt Me by Juice WRLD. It's that time of the day. Sad boy hours. This is all done through Wi-Fi rather than Bluetooth, which makes sense because the device is primarily meant to work with Wi-Fi. And since we made our way back to talking about Wi-Fi, I want to mention that although it's the default way of connecting to the internet, you are able to go around it and you can actually use a hardwired signal or a hardwired connection to the Chromecast. However, in order to be able to do this, you need to get a separate piece for your setup. One of these pieces is the $20 adapter that Google actually sends you, which sends power and Ethernet signal through the power brick, if you will. It's a really weirdly designed power brick with the Ethernet connection on the side, but it gives you the hardwired connection for faster speeds. But the other option that I saw most YouTubers using and a lot of people talking about is the USB-C hub with USB powered through Enable. And going to the point that we made earlier about storage, the hub is a better option if you're looking to have a lot more things like flash drives and SD cards connected to the Chromecast. I haven't personally tried this yet, so I cannot speak as to how good it works, but the one thing that it reminds me a lot of, or that it makes me think a lot of, is the fact that if you add a USB-C hub, it technically turns the Chromecast into an NVIDIA Shield without the $150 plus price mark, which you're technically paying for the adapter, but I mean, worst comes to worst, is like $40-$50, which still puts you at about $100 price point. Now, the one thing to keep in mind though is that the Chromecast is not necessarily designed for gaming. Now, for starters, I don't game as much as I used to before. I'm not into it as much as I was. The way I tested the gaming performance was I downloaded 2 games, one of them being a racing game that I have on my NVIDIA Shield, and I just played it on the Chromecast. It was great. Graphics were awesome. The gameplay was pretty smooth. Maybe it took a little bit longer to open up the game compared to the NVIDIA Shield. And I actually used an NVIDIA Shield controller since it is compatible with the Chromecast. Primarily because the Chromecast reads the NVIDIA Shield controller as a Bluetooth accessory. So you can just add it to the Bluetooth list, or you can pair it via Bluetooth. And then you're even able to control the... Oh, actually, wait. Oh, there we go. It was dead for a second. You're actually able to control the Google TV interface with the NVIDIA Shield controller as well. The only thing about the NVIDIA Shield controller is that it doesn't work with everything. I downloaded a Pac-Man game for the Chromecast also to test out the Chromecast and that kind of performance. The game ran awesome. The game was great and graphics and everything, like I said, pretty smooth. But I was only able to use the Chromecast remote in order to play that one. And once again, I didn't do that much of an in-depth review for gaming, so if you want to know a little bit more about that aspect of the Chromecast, I would recommend checking Linus and ETA Prime's video on the Google Chromecast, since they did go a little bit more in depth about emulators and sideloading and a bunch of other gaming stuff. So if you're interested, go ahead and check those out. So how good is the new Chromecast with Google TV? Actually pretty good, especially for a $50 price point. Now, is it perfect? Not really. I've had some issues with the menus on the interface where I accidentally go here and I believe I'm on one of the top tabs to be able to switch categories and whatnot, but instead I'm on the suggestions and I just randomly keep pressing this arrow thinking that I'm at the top. It just gets a little bit confusing with the highlighting and recognizing where you are. Again, I'm pretty sure it's my fault. I tend to not necessarily pay attention all the time, so that could be an issue too. And the Chromecast is actually frozen on me at least once. I left it in the settings. I think I went on my monitor or switched the input to go work in my computer, switched back to the Chromecast, and it was just frozen. Matter of fact, the Google Assistant button on the controller wouldn't even work. I kept holding it and the Google Assistant wouldn't come up. It was a rather quick fix by literally turning the Chromecast on and off, but it was still pretty inconvenient. And talking about on and off, be mindful of TVs that have CEC or the control through HDMI that we mentioned earlier. I would be on my computer, so I use my TV as a monitor too. I would be working and then it would randomly switch to the Chromecast. I wouldn't press a button, I wouldn't talk to Google Assistant or anything, and it would just randomly switch. Or a couple of times it has turned on in the middle of the night for one reason or the other. And it hasn't done it lately. I don't know if I did something, changed the settings on something that fixed it, but be mindful that it could happen, especially if you have that CEC function, which I believe most TVs do nowadays regardless. But overall, the new Chromecast with Google TV is definitely worth the money. It's a great product, it's a great device, and it's also a great addition to smart homes that already have the Google Home or Google Assistant ecosystem. And that was it for today's video, you guys. I really hope you liked it, and if you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and you guys are the best. Pablo, out.